The IDF confirmed it killed a Hezbollah operative in an overnight airstrike on Beirut's southern suburbs known as the Dakheh, a Hezbollah stronghold. According to the military, the target had recently coordinated with Hamas to plan an imminent terror attack on Israeli civilians. The operation, conducted with the Shin Bet, aimed to neutralize an immediate threat. Lebanese officials said 3 people were killed and 7 injured in the strike, which hit a residential building. This is the second Israeli strike on the Dakheh since a U.S. brokered ceasefire began in November. Hezbollah has not confirmed the identity of the operative, though Al-Mayadeen reported he was not a senior figure. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun condemned the strike as a dangerous warning, while the U.S. blamed terrorist groups for the escalation, saying Israel was only responding to rocket fire. And in Gaza, the IDF says they destroyed a massive Hamas tunnel and have eliminated more than 50 terrorists since renewed fighting began a few weeks ago. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian reports as the fighting continues, so do negotiations to get the hostages out. Shosh, what can you tell us about this latest update?
Just 2 weeks ago, Israel renewed fighting inside of the Gaza Strip, where the military says they have targeted Hamas terrorists and their infrastructure. Of course, all of this, as Israeli officials say, the future of negotiations with Hamas will only take place, quote, under fire. IDF released video shows the explosion of a massive underground tunnel inside of Gaza, where the military says the 1 kilometer-long tunnel was part of Hamas's underground warfare infrastructure. Additionally, they say soldiers located a workshop used for producing rockets and launchers, as Israel has continued to see surprise rocket attacks from the terrorist organization, even as renewed fighting begins. On Monday, the IDF issued mass evacuation orders to all residents who live in or around the city of Rafah as their ground offensive expands. But the military says no full-scale operation in Rafah is currently planned, as fear looms there will be a broader military offensive. Palestinian media has reported hundreds of people were killed in Israeli airstrikes, while Israel says they only target Hamas terrorists who hide in civilian areas and blend in with the Gazan population. Just 2 months ago, Hamas terrorists were parading Israeli hostages in a demoralizing handover, quote, ceremony on their makeshift stage during the first phase of this deal, as hundreds of armed terrorists proudly surrounded the production. Now, weeks later, Hamas terrorists are nowhere to be seen on the streets of Gaza, as they've infiltrated the Gazan society in plain clothes as their own people take the beating from this war. When fighting renewed, Netanyahu vowed negotiations would continue while Hamas was under fire militarily, with hopes of squeezing a deal out of them. Israel has now proposed an extended truce in Gaza in exchange for half the remaining living hostages, plus American-Israeli Idan Alexander, and half the bodies still in Gaza in the first phase of a new 40-day ceasefire deal. The proposal would also require Hamas to provide Israel with the conditions of the remaining living hostages. Netanyahu says Israel's strategy of combining military and diplomatic pressure was working and, quote, hitting Hamas militarily and politically while creating conditions for the release of our hostages. Meanwhile, released hostages and the families of hostages say the renewed military offensive in Gaza only puts their loved ones in more jeopardy. Israel is waiting for Hamas to respond to this proposal, and right now officials believe that 24 of the 59 hostages still in Hamas captivity are currently alive. Experts believe that the only leverage Hamas has at this point in the war are the hostages.
Thank you, Shosh, for the report. And joining us now with more on the latest developments in the Gaza war, the hostage negotiations, and more is Dr. Harel Chorev, senior researcher at the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So the IDF is operating very slowly and carefully in Gaza at the moment. Certainly not the, all hell will break loose that U.S. President Trump said, would be unleashed. What are Israel's objectives now? Is it simply biding time until a potential hostage deal?
Well, I think in the middle of it, the objective is a better hostages deal. Surely, otherwise we would see several divisions storming the Gaza Strip if that was the goal. But that's not the goal. The goal is really to increase the pressure on Hamas. We already saw that it is helpful in terms that Hamas is willing to release 5 hostages, which is not enough for Israel, but it's far better than 1 hostage, as they were willing to release about a month ago with the release of Idan Alexander, which did not materialize. So now we're talking about 5. Israel demands more. We'll see where it goes.
You know, Israel is making a major push to try and release more hostages, as many hostages as it can get. Reports indicate it's asking to release half of the hostages still being held in Gaza. Netanyahu says the military pressure campaign is working on Hamas. We're seeing protests against Hamas in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip. How likely is it that this pressure is working and that we will see some kind of a deal in the very near future?
Well, military pressure always helps, I must say. It helped, including in the first or the second, both in the first and the second hostage deal. It was one of the main reasons why we reached this deal. However, Hamas is in what we can call its money time. And Hamas is trying for strategic goals at the moment, which means to ensure its remaining on ground, its preservance. And I think in that sense, Israel gonna meet a very tough competitor on the other end. However, and any hostage that we are succeeding in releasing is, a world. And I think this is exactly what Israel is striving at the moment, to make this list of hostages as short as possible. And if we need to go into a war because Hamas is not willing to take the offer to go to exile and to demilitarize, I guess this is exactly where we are going to find ourselves.
Now, Israel largely withdrew its troops from Rafah during the ceasefire agreement, after major operations to clear out Hamas terror infrastructure in the south of Gaza. What's happening there now, and what is the estimate, in terms of Hamas's capabilities in Rafah?
Well, first of all, we're talking about 20% more or less of the Gaza Strip, so it's a major key area, both in terms of population and of course the territory. I think the IDF should expect all sorts of things that Hamas prepared for. What we should say an expected invasion of Israel, at least in high risk. So charges and booby traps of all sorts, and this is indeed a great issue. However, on the good side, I can say that part of the reasons that we lost a lot of soldiers, unfortunately, during I would say the late phases of the war, was because we were missing a lot of ammunition. Okay, as simple as that. And houses that could be cleared with one tank shell had to be cleared up with a platoon. And that's of course put a lot of our soldiers in risks. And in the later phases of the war, we lost something like 80% out of our soldiers because of those booby traps. Now, with a better ammunition, hopefully we will be able at least to decrease this number.
Better ammunition, I think it's important to note, thanks to the Trump administration lifting the ban that the Biden administration placed on these munitions.
Definitely. Of course. I mean, this is the whole thing. I mean, the Biden administration, we can say a lot of good words about Biden and his administration and the fact that they supplied us and everything, but they also did a lot of major mistakes that affected the hostages as well.
And speaking of the Trump administration, in recent days, even weeks, we're seeing a very dramatic increase in the rhetoric coming from the Trump administration against the Islamic Republic of Iran and, of course, vice versa. Do you think this is a pressure tactic, or could this indicate that a U.S. strike might be imminent?
Well, I think both. It is a pressure tactic, but I definitely think that they are willing to do this, that they are definitely willing to take measures against the Islamic Republic, definitely. However, it's not good in the Middle East, but actually anywhere. It's not good to threaten and then not to do what you threaten to do, okay? Because you won't be taken seriously after a while. And I'm suspecting the Iranian took some of Trump's deadlines and threats not seriously because the American didn't do anything. However, knowing the Trump administration, knowing the way he took the decision of killing, for example, Qasem Soleimani, I think that the Iranians shouldn't be happy or feel too comfort because Trump will, he can just flip up in one day and decide this is the day and we are attacking. Mm-hmm. So I do believe the Trump administration, when they are threatening to act against the Iranians.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dr. Harel Chorev, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you very much.
Many dream of building a home in Israel, a place filled with meaning, connection, and heritage. Now that dream is a reality with Sparta Real Estate. Jewish families around the world now get to find their home in Israel, whether in the vibrant streets of Tel Aviv, the rich history of Jerusalem, or an escape on a coastal getaway. With Israeli real estate expert Eliyahu Kleinman, every bureaucratic step is taken care of for you. It's that easy. Scan the QR code now to begin your dream, and Eliyahu will contact you directly.
And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing back hard against the Qatargate investigation, accusing police of targeting his aides without any evidence. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman has more.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out on Monday against the ongoing Qatargate investigation, calling it a political witch hunt and accusing police of holding his top two aides hostage. In a video which he posted on social media, Netanyahu claimed that authorities are targeting Jonathan Orich and Eli Feldstein without evidence.
והם מחזיקים את יונתן אוריך ואת אלי פלדשטיין, פשוט מחזיקים אותם כבני ערובה, מרירים להם את החיים, על כלום ושום דבר. זה ציד פוליטי.
The remarks sparked backlash, especially from the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, which represents relatives of the 59 Israelis still held in Gaza. Netanyahu, you are confused, the group said in a statement. The real hostages are our 59 brothers and sisters, held for 542 days. Police arrested Orich and Feldstein on suspicion of receiving Qatari funds while employed in the Prime Minister's office. Netanyahu was summoned to testify to police on Monday. He was questioned by investigators in the police's Lahav 433 Major Crimes Unit. The probe has deepened already existing tensions between Netanyahu and law enforcement.
And speaking of Qatar, Israel and Qatar both participated in a massive joint air drill in Greece this week. The military exercise saw the participation of a total of 11 countries. The annual exercise hosted by Greece saw the participation of two Gulf countries, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Israel's participation alongside Qatar comes amid the Gulf states' role as mediator in the hostage negotiations, and Qatar is also seen as Hamas's biggest sponsor. Israel's Air Force participated with Oron intelligence planes, which are based on Gulfstream's G550 business jet airframe. This aircraft is Israel's newest and most advanced intelligence-gathering jet. Operated by the Nachshon Squadron, and Qatar sent F-15 fighter jets for the joint air drill. And moving on, the White House has announced the elimination of an Iranian-backed Houthi missile expert, while U.S. President Trump tweeted a stark message to the Houthis and to their sponsor, the Islamic Republic of Iran. More details from ILTV's Devo Klein.
It's embarrassing, right. Yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
In the leaked White House chats by The Atlantic, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz confirmed the elimination of the Houthis' quote, top missile guy, claiming that the American military had a positive ID on the terrorist before he entered a building, which has now been leveled by American airstrikes. Despite confirmation by the White House, the Pentagon has not yet confirmed the elimination. Sources in Yemen have been unresponsive due to the Muslim holiday Eid al-Fitr. In the wake of this elimination, President Donald Trump took to X to confirm the significant military gains against the Houthis, promising further strikes if Houthi attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea continue. In his tweet, President Trump said that the U.S. had, quote, only just begun, and the real pain is yet to come for both the Houthis and their sponsors in Iran. The U.S. strikes on the Houthi rebels in Yemen mark the biggest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since Trump took office in January. This operation started as a response to Houthi aggression towards shipping vessels and U.S. warships in the name of the Palestinians in Gaza. Along with the occasional ballistic missile fire targeting central Israel, the Houthis have remained one of the regime's most active fronts.
And meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reversing course on a key security appointment amid political backlash at home and criticism from Washington. It seems retired Vice Admiral Eli Shalvit will no longer take over as head of the Shin Bet. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has withdrawn his nomination of former Navy commander, retired Vice Admiral Eli Shalvit, to lead Israel's Shin Bet security agency, just days after announcing the surprise choice. According to a statement from the Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu thanked Shalvit for his willingness to serve, but said he would now consider other candidates. Shalvit responded by reaffirming his commitment to Israel's security. He said he had accepted the role out of full confidence in the Shin Bet's ability to face current challenges. The reversal followed backlash from within Netanyahu's own coalition and concern from Washington. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham publicly urged Netanyahu to drop the appointment, citing Shalvit's past criticism of the Trump administration. There has never been a better supporter for the state of Israel than President Trump, Graham wrote on X. He said that Shalvit's statements about Trump and his policies will create unnecessary stress at a critical time. Offering pointed advice to Israeli leaders, Graham added, "My advice to my Israeli friends is change course and do better vetting." The abrupt shift comes amid Netanyahu's efforts to oust current Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, a move that some see as politically charged.
And the United Arab Emirates has sentenced 3 men to death for the brutal murder of an Israeli Moldovan citizen in what authorities say was a premeditated act of terror. A 4th accomplice received a life sentence, but beneath the legal proceedings lies a chilling reality. This was an anti-Semitic hate crime carried out in the heart of a country that prides itself on tolerance. ILTV's Ariella Lachiani has the report.
Zvi Kogan, a representative of the Chabad movement in the UAE, was kidnapped and murdered in November. Prosecutors say the perpetrators tracked him, took him against his will, and killed him with premeditation and terrorist intent. The Abu Dhabi Federal Court of Appeals handed down its ruling on Monday, sentencing 3 of the men to death, while a 4th, who aided them, will serve life in prison before deportation. Kogan was a prominent figure in the Jewish community, working to strengthen Jewish life in the UAE. His murder has left many questioning whether Jewish residents are truly safe, despite official assurances from the government. While the UAE has promoted itself as a hub of religious tolerance, this attack highlights the dangerous undercurrents of anti-Semitism that persist. The UAE's Attorney General called the ruling a reflection of the country's commitment to justice. But for Jewish communities, it underscores a darker truth: the targeted murder of a Jewish leader in a country that recently embraced Israel under the Abraham Accords. Under UAE law, the death sentences will automatically be appealed. But justice in the courtroom does not erase the brutality of this crime or the hatred that fueled it. As the Jewish world watches this case unfold, one thing remains clear: anti-Semitism in all its forms must be confronted.
And today we have the privilege of hearing once again from Yael Eckstein, president of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. She shares with us a recap of some of the most important headlines from recent weeks. Let's take a look.
Shalom, my friends, from here in the Holy Land. I'm Yael Eckstein, and here are 3 things that you should know about Israel this week. Number 1, with some war updates. Israel continues to be on attack from 3 different fronts, as rockets were launched from the Gaza Strip, from Lebanon, and from Yemen. These rockets sent millions of Israelis into their bomb shelters, and the war will not end until these terrorists put down their arms and release the 59 Israeli hostages that are right now being held in the Gaza Strip. And we all pray that it will be very soon. Number 2, with some positive updates. Agam Berger was released from captivity after she was taken from the army base on October 7th. And recently, she was gifted a violin that survived the Holocaust. The person who owns this violin said that he knew that this violin was destined to be given to Agam. The Jewish people always persevere, even after the worst atrocities, and that music represents our freedom. And number 3, with some fellowship updates. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews helps everyone in need in Israel. During the holiday of Ramadan, the fellowship provides food cards to Israeli soldiers who are Muslim and are celebrating Ramadan. No matter what religion you practice, no matter what faith you have, we're in this together in this fight for freedom. Well, there you have it, my friends. There are 3 things that you now know about Israel. Join me next week, same place, same time, for more updates on what's happening in the Holy Land. Shalom.
In our final story tonight, a positive story. Amit Susana, a survivor of Hamas captivity, is being honored with the U.S. State Department's International Woman of Courage Award. Abducted from her home in Kibbutz Kfar Aza on October 7, 2023, she endured 55 days in captivity. After her release, she bravely went public with accounts of the sexual violence she endured, becoming the first hostage to do so. Her testimony, delivered at the UN and beyond, has raised global awareness of sexual violence as a weapon of war and given other survivors the courage to share their stories. In a statement, Susana says she accepts the award on behalf of the women who fought in the war and those who endured captivity, finding strength in each other to survive the unimaginable. The State Department commends her bravery, saying she has used her voice to shed light on the trauma faced by hostages and continues to fight for their release. A trained attorney with years of experience in intellectual property law, Susana is now dedicating herself to ensuring the world does not forget those still in Hamas captivity. She will receive the award in a ceremony alongside 7 other women recognized for their extraordinary courage. Congratulations to Amit Susana. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Rain showers are expected around parts of the country tonight, with cloudy skies and temperatures reaching lows of around 16 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside warm temperatures with highs of 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Lajar Grave-Lazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.